Meatball Mayhem. In the springtime on the island of Sodor, the sun shines and the birds sing, and the trains on the tracks are really useful. Steam locomotives can be used on excursion railroads, but not just for obsolescence, but they can pull freight cars, passengers, or gender cars. And this is why they're really useful indeed, by pulling freight of where it needs to go. And in the rear of every train is a brake van. CSX trains are used on the East Coast. They can go to the Midwest or the Gulf Coast. And AC-44CW locomotives have lots of horsepower. And that's what makes them pull freight cars of where they need to go to be really useful indeed. But just because steam locomotives are obsolete doesn't mean they can be really useful on excursion railroads. Most women engines can use multiple freight cars behind their tenders while they do great jobs pulling freight of where it needs to go. Just because the woman locomotive takes the lead doesn't mean the freight cars move with no engine. Freight cars, passengers, and gender cars can be hooked up together so it can be a mix-up train. And that is how it can be really useful of whatever job it needs to do. And this is why women trains are really useful. One day, Quarla, Irie, Tiara, Laraya, Gabby, and Jency were on their way to the rail yard. Quarla's driver turned on her ditch lamps as she steamed into the yard. And they pulled up just in time. "Here we are," said Quarla. Then Mr. Cakester arrived. He had an important job. "Today, you six," he said, "I'd like you to collect the Amtrak mix-up and bring it to Fort Worth, Texas. It's a really long train, so you must all haul at the same time." "We'd love to do that, sir," Quarla said. She was proud. And they steamed out of the yard. "Here we go," Quarla, Irie, Tiara, Laraya, Gabby, and Jency all said at the same time. "Women trains coming through!" And they forced their way out of the yard as they carried on to the next rail yard. When the 6 engines came to a stop, some troublesome trucks were waiting for Rebecca to take to Vickerstown. "Are you waiting for Rebecca?" asked Quarla. "You all look like spaghetti, meatballs, trees, and more!" Laraya said. I bet so, said Irie. I wish I can dress up like Meatballs, said Tiara. I wish we can have chocolate ball trees, said Gabby. That takes a lot for the children to make, Jency said. I think that looks really fun, and I hope I can eat it, Caitlin said. Engines don't eat spaghetti and meatballs, Abby said. That's what people eat. I bet you're right, said Conroy. Caitlin shunted over to the freight cars. What's gonna happen, Caitlin? Asked Quarla. Caitlin explained. Then
I'm going to sing to you on top of spaghetti.
Then Conroy puffed off, and he pulled up next to Scruffy. That was a nice pasta song, Conroy said to Quarla. I know Thomas the Tank Engine. Do you really? Said Quarla. That's a nice TV show, of course. Then came something. If they sang on top of spaghetti on Thomas, wouldn't that be silly? Conroy laughed. That would be very silly, laughed Quarla. And they steamed out of the yard with 6 cars behind them. I know a lot about meatball songs, Quarla said to her trailing units, because it would be very silly if they sang on top of spaghetti on Thomas the Train. And they laughed out of the yard. The on top of spaghetti Thomas the Train song is 59 hours long, Rebecca, Conroy said. Rebecca was shocked. That's a really long time for a song, Rebecca said.